What up, everybody? This is your boy Dedrian from House of Rasslin, and this is my review for the January 25th episode of AEW Dynamite. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification so that way you are notified when the House of Wrestling drops its latest content. Follow me, Dedrian180, on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. So, tonight's AEW Dynamite, if you didn't watch it or if somehow you didn't know, this episode was celebrating and honoring Jay Briscoe, who unfortunately passed away last week in an automobile accident. So they got the okay, Tony Khan and AEW, and it was requested by Mark Briscoe and Jay Lethal to wrestle in honor of Jay Briscoe. And man, this episode, going into it, forgive me, guys, little sinus issue. But yeah, man, going into this show, when word came out that, man, Mark Briscoe is going to be wrestling, it's like, whoa, okay, thank you. Finally, Warner Brothers Discovery, like, smartened up and like, hey, like, put this guy on. And, man, come on, man. These guys should have been on TV years ago, you know. It's unfortunate that it took him passing for his brother to be on TV, and I believe he will be allowed going forward for a tweet years ago, which he made amends for, apologized for, and colleagues, came to his, defense and everything. Like, hey, he's, done what, whatever people think that he should have done to change or what have you. He did that, and it's unfortunate that it took that, but man, it was just so much emotion and just like, man, it's just gonna be very emotional to see him out there. And I gotta say, and I know you guys are used to my review. This is gonna be a real special review, very different because of the circumstances surrounding this episode of Dynamite. So I'm mostly gonna talk about Jay Briscoe, Mark Briscoe, and just this match and just how the show flowed and everything. Not going to go into detail as far as the matches. I might just cover it and stuff like that. But man, this episode was really emotional. And, for fans of the Briscoes, I came across them, oh man, like 9 years ago through a mutual friend, a colleague. And I loved their promos, and it was just so authentic. And they reminded me a little bit of the Sheep Herders back in the 80s. And if you guys don't know who the Sheep Herders are, they eventually became the Bushwhackers in WWE. But the Sheep Herders were, man, very similar as far as look and just aggressiveness and everything. And I just always loved their promos, especially Jay Briscoe's promos. And it was so entertaining. It was funny. And then at the same time, it's like, these dudes are going to beat the hell out of people. And man, it's just seeing that video package that aired right after the Ricky Starks, Action Andretti Jericho, Sammy Guevara match. Like, man, it's like, oh man, like, it was so real, very well done. Shout out to the person that produced that vignette and just that whole video package. Like, oh my god, that was so good. And yeah, man, it was just, you can sense that the crowd was anticipating and just waiting for the main event. And they weren't dismissive or anything. It's just the circumstances around it, and it was just a very unique feeling and very therapeutic. And shout out to commentary. I think anybody that gives commentary a hard time as far as transitions, because of course Excalibur, there was a few moments during the first hour you could tell, like, the transition, he was a little bit off. But until you've been in a live television program doing live reads, you don't understand how it ain't easy. It is not easy, especially with the circumstances surrounding tonight's episode. So shout out to Excalibur, Tony Schiavone, Um, Taz, especially Io Riccaboni and Caprice Coleman, man, they did a very fantastic job for the main event. Io Riccaboni really added a lot of things we could relate to as not only wrestling fans but human beings. There's people around us that we know that are losing family members, and it's not like we're alone or anything. It's like we could, show empathy, and he really uh, did a very good job of mentioning that and really bringing that to light. And I love Ian Riccaboni's commentary and Caprice Coleman, their chemistry and everything. And man, shout out to I gotta give him his flowers, man. Mark Briscoe, to go through what he's gone through in a week and to have the strength to get out there and wrestle a wrestling match under the circumstances, man. You don't realize how strong that is for a person to do. And man, that I don't have a cat, but I salute him, man, because that's very challenging to do. And of course the guy you're wrestling with, Jay Lethal, all good friends and everything, and Jay Lethal gets in the ring and he's crying and showing emotion, and Mark Briscoe gets in there, and it never ceased to fail me. And I have been watching wrestling since the mid '80s. It never ceased to amaze me when there's a unfortunate injury or an untimely passing. That, man, it's the love that wrestling fans give to wrestlers that it's so therapeutic, man. Um, you could see the love that the fans were giving Mark Briscoe during his entrance and when he was on the top rope, saluting the crowd and everything. You could just feel the love they were giving him, and you could sense the love that he was giving back to us during this, challenging time for him. And man, that I salute him for that, man, because it's it's challenging, man. Um, I don't think anybody could. Um, yeah, just thinking about it, like, man, just kudos to him, man. And unfortunately, in the world we live in, and with technology and everything, hopefully there isn't someone that says anything ignorant, which I doubt it, because people are just dumb like that. If you guys are watching this and you see people say something out of line, block them. Don't even engage them. Just block them. They don't even deserve a reply or anything. And man, kudos to them for that main event, man. That was so. I can only imagine it being therapeutic for Mark Briscoe, to just get out there and just express an emotion, and just you can say it was somewhat the beginning of a healing process, which there's no timetable for that when you lose a loved one. But yeah, man, more power to him, man. Grace, peace, and blessings to that guy, man, because man, that takes a lot of strength. And mind you, the way he wrestles, it takes a lot of precision, detail, focus, communication. Like, there's a lot of things that go into executing professional wrestling moves that many people don't know. And salute him, man. And yeah, AEW, Ring of Honor, Tony Khan, and the rest of the men and women that work there, man. Salute to you guys for just putting this together in such a short time frame and getting, man, I think this is one of the reasons why, I know from my experience, you guys can comment below if you guys can relate to this. It's one of the reasons why many of us are wrestling fans, that because, we've probably experienced something very traumatic and just heartbreaking, and it just seems that wrestling is there for us, take our mind off things. And yeah, man, this was a unique episode. You could tell from the first match, um, it was just a lot of emotion and everything. And I know some people will like pick it apart and, well, excluding the main event in the circumstance, this was I'm not gonna do that, man. It's, I know what it is to, trying to think if I've lost a few colleagues that I've worked with, and a dear colleague that was like a brother to me, that when I first started in broadcasting and gave me my first internship. Shout out to KG, man. So yeah, it's a challenging thing to do, to get back and to work under those circumstances. So, but man, all the men and women that performed tonight, like, man, shout out to them. It's a challenging to do what they did tonight. It's not easy. Like, man, you got to have a lot of focus to go out in front of a crowd, maintain your emotions, and execute whatever presentation, Tony Khan or whatever promoter wants to present. Like, you got it. That's why they're called professionals, for a reason. But with that, I'm going to give you guys the results for tonight's AEW Dynamite. So you had Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara. They defeated Action Andretti and Ricky Starks. You had Darby Allin defeat Buddy Matthews. That was a fantastic match. You had Jungle Boy and Hook defeat Ethan Page and Matt Hardy. You had Bryan Danielson defeat Brian Cage. That was another great match. You had Ruby Soho defeat Toni Storm. That was a pretty solid match. A lot of stuff gonna come out of that feud. And of course, in the main event, you had Mark Briscoe defeat Jay Lethal. So that is the results for AEW Dynamite. I'm gonna get into a little bit into the show, and then talk a little bit more of the main event and Mark Briscoe wrestling and honoring and celebrating the life of his brother. And that's the thing. Today is Mark Briscoe's birthday. He would have turned 39, and for me, it hits a certain way with me because that's only 1 year younger than me. So it's like, man, that hits. That hits. And maybe you guys who are watching this review, you've probably either there's a wrestler or a celebrity or someone that you were fond of. Like, man, I really enjoy their work, and when they pass away and you find out, how old they are, like, oh my God, they're just around the same age as me. Like, it really puts things in perspective. But man, the first match, we'll get into that. So the first match, Jericho and Sammy Guevara versus Ricky Starks and Action Andretti. It was a back and forth match. You can tell in this match that we're going to get an eventual breakup of Daniel Garcia from JAS, which, me, honestly, I can't wait till they move on from this. I don't want to say it's, some people, like, I could see why people say it's bad in this instance. It just feels like it's just time for everyone involved to move on to something more. That it's like it's run its course. And by that I mean, like, Jericho aligning with Sammy Guevara, Hagar, 2.0. Like, it just feels like it's time to move on, and there should be a new main heel faction in AEW. But man, this match had some pretty good spots. Like, this Action Andretti, Ricky Starks, for me, the what was it? It wasn't the Ricky Stark spear, and um, I believe it was Sammy Guevara or Jericho. Yeah. Um, for me, it was when Sammy Guevara executed the Sammy Cutter while Ricky Starks was walking the ropes like he normally does. He taunts and then he uh, hits them with the opponent with the forearm. Like that was a nice cutter. You had a lot of good moves. You had a Liger Bomb kick out by Jericho. You had Jericho countering a springboard moonsault with the knees. You had a reverse Hurricane Rana by Action Andretti. You had Ricky Starks. Um, he did like a somewhat of a sidewalk slam to Chris Jericho on the outside, which I was like, oh crap, they're gonna win this match, but they didn't. Garcia wound up hitting Action Andretti with the bat. That allowed Sammy Guevara to hit the GTS. Again, Sammy Guevara and Chris Jericho defeat Ricky Starks and Action Andretti. Really interested to see how long this goes. Not so much where this goes, because it's obvious where this is going to go. Where Daniel Garcia is eventually going to get fed up with JS and he's going to leave and turn face and everything. Like, you see where that's going. It's just a matter of how long this is going to be. Because, of course, the inside joke with Chris Jericho's feuds in AEW that you think they're going to last 3 months and they wound up lasting like 8 months. And it's like, oh man, it's like, okay, can we like accelerate this? But overall, this was a decent match to start off the show, especially with the circumstances surrounding it. An interesting thing about this match, and I know people are going to dog this match, but Action Andretti is the one who got the loss, not Ricky Starks. So in a way, they did keep Ricky Starks protected, quote unquote, because he didn't take the pinfall. So he's still that guy that's rising and rising and rising, which he's got to get that TNT title sometime this year. Actually, let me rephrase that. There's a lot of people that need that TNT, that should have that TNT title. There's at least 5 to 8 people that should have the TNT title this year. Let's see. Buddy Matthews, Powerhouse Hobbs, Wardlow, Swerve Strickland, Keith Lee, Andrade, Roosh. Did I mention Ricky Starks? Maybe. See, that's 8 right there. 7 or 8 right there. So there you go. Then of course we get check out that video package of Jay Briscoe. I know it is on AEW's social media platforms. I saw it on Facebook. Their AEW Facebook page. Man, just watch that. Man, it's so well done, so good. It just brings together what many of us enjoyed and loved about Jay Briscoe and the Briscoes. That grit, that feistiness, that aggressiveness, that, just that, what you love about professional wrestling. That, man, check out that video package. It was really nice. Then we get Darby Allin with Sting taking on Buddy Matthews with Julia Hart. They did recap Sting and Darby Allin's match with Great Muta and Noah, which I love that. I love when they recap what a wrestler did in another promotion, whether it's video package or even discuss it. It's so cool. It just brings everything together, which that reminds me, I am going to do a video regarding a situation surrounding that from the other company. But no, I really like that. Buddy Matthews, right away, he just started throwing Darby Allin into the barricade. Man, Darby Allin and Buddy Matthews. I don't know if they were short on time or what have you, or if it was just them getting used to each other. But man, I really like Buddy Matthews and Darby Allin wrestling. Like, they have a really cool chemistry that it's believable. Like, Buddy Matthews is a little bit taller than Darby Allin, but he's bulky as hell. Like, that dude's ripped. And just the power moves he would execute on Darby. And man, Darby Allin, man, that guy, he is a special wrestler that you like he's a special attraction that when you know he's on the card, you know you're going to get some crazy stuff, but man, you are going to enjoy it and you will be entertained. For me, the match really went to another level when the lights went out. And this, mind you, when the lights went out during this match, man, it was so unique because it was unexpected. Of course, it's the House of Black, but it's like, okay, you expected more to the end. Wasn't that? It just happened. And Malachi Black and Brody King are outside and they're staring Sting down by the apron. And then you see Ortiz come and he hits Brody King with, I believe, a bat or something like that, a weapon. And Malachi Black hits him and they start wrestling in the back. And they go in the back. I believe it was Brody King and Sting. So they're going in the back. And after that, you had a reverse Hurricane Run and Crucifix Pin that was Buddy Matthews kicked out of. Excuse me. Then you had a buckle bomb, then a stomp by Buddy, which he attempted to pin. Darby Allin kicked out. Then you had a code red and kick out by Buddy Matthews. Then you had a scorpion death drop from the top rope, man. That was... Thankfully, it wasn't worse than what it could have been. Any move to the inch forward or inch back wouldn't have looked good. But man, these guys are professionals and they did their thing. That looked sweet. But eventually, Buddy Matthews kicked out. Then, a little bit later, you had Darby Allin hit a coffin drop while Buddy Matthews in the second rope trying to get in the ring. He executed the coffin drop. Darby Allin pinned him 1, 2, 3. He wins. Then Tony Schiavone afterwards. He's getting an interview with Darby Allin. It's interrupted by Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe basically says, I'm taking what's mine. And the greatest mistake you made was winning that championship. So we got Darby Allin and Samoa Joe in this feud. And next week we're getting Samoa Joe and Darby Allin. Man, that should be good. Woo, that's going to be good. A vengeful Samoa Joe facing a wounded Darby Allin. And let's face it, Darby Allin in this match, like, he was wounded. And I think one of the stories that they're leaning into with Darby Allin is that he's a relentless competitor, but yet his downfall is that he's so relentless, he's not mindful of how much he's lost by being relentless. And by loss, I mean his energy, his health, his well-being, his ability to rest and re-energize himself, that he just keeps going and going and going, and he doesn't realize that the other wrestlers who want that title are watching him and they're waiting for the right moment to get him. And it happened the first time when he had the title, when Miro defeated him, which I can't wait for Miro to come back, man. We need Miro back, man. So yeah, that we're getting Samoa Joe and Darby Allin next week. Then we get a nice video package of Adam Cole. He's in the ring. He's running the ropes. He's rolling on the mat, and he's talking about how much he's missed the being in the ring and everything. So Adam Cole is coming back soon. I think more than likely he's going to be at Revolution. I don't know who he's facing. That's going to be the interesting thing, who his first feud is. But looking forward to Adam Cole. This was a nice video package. Like, the video package for AEW for the last, man, you could say since Full Gear. Really good. Really good. And it's been really informative for a wrestling fan. If you haven't been watching anything, it really gets you up to speed in what's happening. So we get Ethan Page and Matt Hardy versus Hook and Jungle Boy. Matt Hardy comes out to his music and he's doing the delete, and Hardy, Ethan Page cuts him off, and Stokely Hathaway, and he's like, nope, we're not doing that. And Stokely Hathaway's telling Isaiah Cassidy to put the change on. He's like, nope, I'm not doing it. And he's like, put my chain on, dad ass, which I hollered when that happened. And then as Jungle Boy and Hook are coming to the ring, Ethan Page just bails on him. and it's basically 2-on-1. They get the upper hand during the picture-in-picture. But the theme of this whole match, because eventually what wound up happening was Jungle Boy got the snap trap on Ethan Page, and Matt Hardy's on the ropes, and he's kind of like acting like he's helping him, which is like he's just got his hand out. He's not actually reaching in, and Hook just took him out and everything, and Ethan Page wound up tapping out. But it does, with this story between Ethan Page and Matt Hardy and Isaiah Cassidy, it does feel like we're headed towards Broken Matt returning, which I think it's cool. I think it's cool that he comes back as Broken Matt, because when you look at AEW as a whole, they do need, at least I see it, that they do need some of those hokey characters that are, I don't want to say hokey character. That's not a good description. Comedic. There you go. They need more comedic wrestlers. You already got Danhausen. You get Broken Matt, and what he was doing, if it's similar to what he was doing back in Impact, but just modernize it, just with the cast of characters that they have, like that could be pretty cool, and pretty fun, and just something that's cool. And of course, if we wind up getting Broken Matt with Danhausen, that's gonna be comedic gold, man, because that's just gonna be hilarious, a hoot. Will they win a lot? Maybe not, but it will be entertaining. And that's the whole point. Just be entertaining. So we get a backstage segment with Hangman Page and Renee Paquette, and she's mentioning what happened last week, where you were very vague with your answers as far as, what you gotta recapture or what have you. And he's like, in order to look forward, you gotta look back and make amends. And he says, next week we're going to be in Dayton, and I challenge you, Jon Moxley, and I am going to knock you out. And Warrior Yuta interrupts. So he challenges Hangman Page to a fight on Rampage. We're getting that, and then next week we're getting Hangman Page and Jon Moxley in Dayton. So I guess that vacation for Jon Moxley is short, or it's coming up, or whatever. It's taking time off or what have you. But I'm looking forward to that Hangman Page Warrior Yuta match on Rampage this Friday. And excuse me, guys, the Hangman Page Jon Moxley match, that's gonna be a brawl. That is going to be a brawl. These two, Moxley and Hangman Page, they remind me of, I don't know if the match has happened. I gotta go back and look. But it reminds me of like Magnum TA and Terry Funk fighting. Like, I'm a big old school guy of like brawls and stuff like that, like Terry Funk brawl and stuff like. I enjoy that. So I enjoy Jon Moxley stuff, and it's cool. But I look forward to it and see where that goes next week. Then we get Bryan Danielson and Brian Cage. This was a really, this surprised me of. Not so much who won, because I knew that Bryan Danielson was going to win, but it was just how they orchestrated this, and how Bryan Danielson, I don't want to say Bryan Danielson, but Brian Cage, he actually was more, how do I describe this? He used his power moves, but he was more technical. Like a power technical moveset that he used in this match, which was really interesting. Of course, he did his second rope suplex and power bomb and buckle bomb and stuff like that. And to see Bryan Danielson counter him, and I had to remind myself, I'm like, one of Bryan Danielson's best matches in the last 5 years was, man, I think it was Survivor Series when he fought Brock Lesnar, and how that match, like, nobody talks about that match, but that was a very good match with Brock Lesnar and Bryan Danielson. And you could see some of those elements here. Of course, there's talk that Brian Cage's contract is coming up shortly in AEW, so we'll see what happens with that. But in the meantime, what he did here, this was a fun match. I recommend you guys watch this match. It was a really cool match. Very technical, man. This was some nice stuff that Bryan Danielson did. I'm enjoying this journey of Bryan Danielson as he's looking to dethrone MJF for the WWE AEW World Championship, and man, he's just bringing out different um move sets and just counters and reversals, and just it's so cool to see. But the big thing about this match wasn't necessarily the match, because Bryan Danielson eventually wound up winning with a roll up, but it was afterwards where Brian Cage, later in towards the end of the match, he really he he slammed Bryan Danielson on the apron on his left shoulder. So after the match, he had to grab the chair, started working Bryan Danielson's left shoulder. He rams Bryan Danielson into the ring post with his shoulder in the chair and everything. MJF comes out. He's about to do more work, and Konosuke Takeshita makes the save, and he clears house and everything. He knees Brian Cage and everything. But man, people have been predicting this a while ago that Takeshita was eventually going to join the Blackpool Combat Club. I like that. I like the prospect of Wheeler Yuta and Takeshita being a tag team. That could be pretty cool. So man, I'm looking forward to Takeshita and Bryan Danielson working together. Of course, there is the mystery of Don Callis trying to recruit Takeshita. So there's that whole thing going on. But man, I'm really liking that, and let's buckle up and see where this who else Bryan Danielson will face. It was announced a little bit later that next week he's going to be wrestling Timothy Thatcher from Pro Wrestling Noah. If that name sounds familiar, he was in NXT. I believe he was with Grizzled Young Vets. I think maybe I'm wrong or something. Comment below what group he was in NXT. But man, that's going to be a dope match. But man, the Takeshita Danielson alliance, I like that. Then we get afterwards, coming back from commercial, we get a medical update. Renee Paquette goes into the medical. I like this whole setup because it brought a sports feel, and it brought like an old school medical update in wrestling. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, and maybe you're probably accustomed to seeing just WWE in the last 20 years or something, like, go back and check in the 80s. It was synonymous in Jim Crockett, WWE, World Class, all those 80s promotions, like mid to late 80s. They actually did it during when Hulk Hogan got his ribs squished by King Kong Bundy. Check that out. There's a rehab video he did with, I believe it was Hillbilly Jim. Then check out Ricky Steamboat when Macho Man crushed his larynx. Check that one out. So this whole setup really reminded me of that era, and it's like, ooh, I like this. Like, for me, I like when they make it look realistic, like logically realistic. It's like, ooh, okay, this is pretty cool. And Danielson just goes off on Dr. Sampson from AEW, and he's like, you're not going to tell me when to wrestle. I wrestled a 60-minute match with a messed up shoulder, and I'm going to remove that mask, and you're nothing but fear, and I will see you at Revolution. And he walks away, and you got Renee Paquette and Dr. Sampson. They're just looking at each other like, man. And Danielson, the more he's gets closer to MJF, the more he's getting hurt. Which now it's like, okay, MJF is going to make Danielson tap or pass out in that 60-minute Iron Man match. So I'm looking forward to that match. Then we get Toni Storm and Ruby Soho. They're playing into it. AEW Originals versus the women that are from the outside. They incorporated a little bit of like a WWE style like interview while they entered, and like, hey, they had this to say. Like, I really like that. It was really cool. I wish more promotions would do that. Like, it's not only a WWE thing. Like, WCW used to do it back in the day as well, and I know AWA did it. World Class, I believe Mid South did it when they were UWF. They kind of did it a little bit, but it's something that's been around for a while, but they haven't done it in the past 10, 15 years, maybe sporadically in WWE, but I really like this. Tony Storm just calls pretty much any woman that started in AEW a homegrown idiot. And Ruby Soho comes to the ring and they have her video package, and she's like, yeah, all this stuff you're saying ends tonight. So this was a really physical match. A lot of forearms, a lot of chops, man. They were really laying into it for me. When the match really went to that, ooh, okay, was when Ruby Soho kneed Tony Storm and she was, favoring her nose and just like, oh my God, my nose, my nose. And as Ruby Soho went to check on her, she slung her into the bottom rope and then did the hip thrust or the hip attack. And it was like, uh-oh, Tony Storm's fully gone hill. And if you didn't catch during her entrance, normally when she comes out, she's, yeah. And as soon as her music hit, she just walked like, and it's like, oh man, she's turned. There's no turning back. So she does the hip attack, and then she does the DDT. Actually, no, she does the hip attack, and then a DDT, and kick. Ruby Soho, she kicks out, and then Britt Baker's music hits, and she comes out, and it's like, wait a minute, Britt Baker's like, is she injured? Wait a minute, she's not injured, and it distracts Tony Storm, which allows Ruby Soho to hit the Destination Unknown maneuver, gets the pin 1, 2, 3. So this furthers the storyline between the AEW originals and the outsiders. Of course, there has been rumblings within wrestling fandom and a few wrestling media, that this could be leading to a women's blood and guts match, which I'm all for it, man. Let's go. Like, just make sure Jade is in there and Mercedes in there. Whew, let's go. Like, these women deserve a match of this magnitude because the work that they've done to really make the AEW women's division so interesting in many facets, man. It's so cool, and salute them. Man, they've done a terrific job. I enjoy it. I'm engaged. I'm invested in it because there's so many different variety of characters, and mind you, there might be more women added to this women's division as the year goes on. So it's not only these women, and Chris Statler's potentially coming back next month, Thunder Rosa. So it's just this whole, like, oh man, this is gonna be so good, man. Then we get MJF promo, and he basically tells Bryan Danielson, Takeshita, you can't match my tempo. This belt turns my catchphrases into a fact. You don't want me to get into the mental because from there, you're done. And they show the video package of Timmy Thatcher, and they announce that it's going to be next week. Then we get a video package of Jamie Hayter and Emi Suka, which will be on Rampage. The AEW Women's Division, man, like, every match that they book, like, you're invested in because, like, man, this is going to be a really good match. And I'm so happy that the Women's Division, they've propelled it to where it's caught up to what we've already grown accustomed to as far as the men's division, the anticipation of those matches. So it's just a combination of that, and it just feels like as the year goes on and people start getting healthy, like, we're going to get some really cool stuff from AEW, and I'm looking forward to it. So then, like I said, main event, Jay Lethal, Mark Briscoe, and Riccaboni and Caprice Coleman and Excalibur are on commentary. To start the match, Sanjay Dutt and Jay Lethal, they hug as he comes out to the ring. They go to commercial, and man, Mark Briscoe gets the full entrance, and that crowd blew a gasket, man. I loved it, man. And like I said at the beginning of this review, like it was so cool to see the love that the fans gave Mark Briscoe, man, with that ovation, and to see him give the love back. And man, it's so beautiful, man, so beautiful. And hopefully this was therapeutic for him. And you know, like I said, grace, peace, and blessings to him and his family during this really difficult and challenging time. Um, as they go forward and stuff like that, man. It's man, oh man, that man, it that I mean, there's no uh, if you weren't crying or shedding a tear, or holding back tears while this was going on, man. I don't know, man, but I know that I was doing it, man. And I comment below if you guys were doing it. Just like, man, this man holding it, like, oh man, it's just like, man. And man, there was Briscoe chants. They laid it in. Mark Briscoe and Jay Lethal, they laid it in. And mind you, this is a match that both these men wanted. Um, the spot where um Jay Lethal or Mark Briscoe put Jay Lethal on the table and dove from the top turnbuckle onto the table. Man, I thought that was the match. I was like, man, that'd be the perfect pin. Like he does it, and I'm like, oh wait, it's not false count anywhere or no DQ. I'm like, oh crap, he's got to bring him in the ring, and I'm looking at the time, and it's like 8:50, 6:57. I'm like, oh man, I hope they don't go over time. It's like, oh man, come on. Oh, but they got it done. Mark Briscoe hit 2 lariats. Then he did the J Driller. What's the J Driller Driver? That's what it's called. Hit it twice, pinned him 1, 2, 3, and the locker room came out, and just the emotion, the love, and watching Mark Briscoe. Ian Riccaboni was on commentary, and then as soon as Jay Briscoe was talking, he just stopped and he let Jay speak to the family, to his family and everything. And man, it's such a touching moment, man. Like as a viewer, it's so touching to see this because this ain't something that's scripted or anything. Like it's real life events surrounding it, and it's him. This is Mark Briscoe. This is him. He's speaking, and man, that really touched me. And just to see the emotion from all the guys, Tony Khan, and um, all the guys who, it looked like it was all the guys who wrestled in Ring of Honor, but also a few AEW wrestlers, and just the emotion and the love, and that shot of just Jay Briscoe holding, or Mark Briscoe holding up both tag team titles, and the image of his brother. Like, man, man, that was so touching. And man, this was a very emotional Dynamite. And um yeah, yeah, man, it was touching. And man, I just pray that the family, Mark, his nieces, and his sister-in-law and his dad, like, just, man, grace, peace, and blessing to them. And just nieces, Jay's daughters, I just hope they everything, full recovery, and just everything. And just it's such an unfortunate and tragic circumstances surrounding it, but man, some good can come out of it. And um as us as wrestling fans, man, just show him love, the family love, um the other wrestlers love, because you have 2 daughters who lost a dad, you have a wife who lost a husband, you have a dad who lost a son, you have a brother who lost his brother, and you have the wrestling community who lost a very dear friend. So um And like I said, man, just enjoy wrestling, love it, appreciate the wrestlers that sacrifice their body, their time, their travel, and everything to entertain us. And return, be gracious to them, and just hey, it's entertainment and everything, and just go along for the ride. Um, so yeah, man, this episode was really touching, and I'm glad Tony Khan. Not saying he did it before, but man, he was adamant about it, and Mark, man, kudos to Mark Briscoe and Jay Lethal for pushing for this match, and um, thankfully Warner Brothers Discovery allowed them to celebrate Jay Lethal, excuse me, Jay Briscoe, and show a video package. And like I said, man, it's unfortunate that it took his passing for him to be allowed on Warner Brothers Discovery. When, if you know Warner Brothers Discovery, there's a lot of people that have done some crazy things and literally have been arrested and charged with stuff, and they're still allowing them on their entertainment properties. But Jay Briscoe and the Briscoes, no, like I don't understand what was behind that. But thankfully, it looks moving forward. Mark Briscoe will be appearing on AEW television, and man, hopefully this, like I said, this was therapeutic, and the healing process is not going to be immediate. It's not going to be all, by this time everything will be good, and it's an everlasting healing process. And as wrestling fans, let's just be there for them, and just show compassion and empathy. I know many of us have lost loved ones in the past 2 years, with the pandemic and all this other stuff. So, man, just show empathy and compassion. And like I said, man, just enjoy wrestling and just enjoy your fandom and just have fun with it. But with that, man, my camera moved a little bit. Oh. That is my review for the January 25th episode of AEW Dynamite, honoring and celebrating the life of Jay Briscoe. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notifications, so that way you're notified when the House of Wrestling drops its latest content. Follow me, Dedrian180, on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Man, reach for the sky, boy. Man, rest in peace, Jay Briscoe, man. Thank you for sharing your gift, your love, and your passion of professional wrestling. I greatly appreciate it. You will never be forgotten, and grace, peace, and blessings to the Briscoe family, their dad, Jay Briscoe's daughters, his wife, and Mark Briscoe, and the community in that area, because they were really big in that community and active in I believe, the athletic department, and just grace, peace, and blessings. So that is my review, and with that, I will see you next time.